The sun was barely up, painting the sky over my 30-acre farm in soft golds, when I stepped out to load feed into my truck. Harvest season was in full swing, and every hour counted. My name's Jake, and this land tucked just beyond the edge of town has been my life for 2 decades. It's not just dirt and crops. It's my blood, my sanity, my fight. But that morning, as I swung open the barn doors, I froze. A gleaming black Mercedes SUV sat smugly in front of my tractor, blocking the only path to my fields. It wasn't parked nearby or off to the side. It was dead center, bumper kissing my bucket loader. This wasn't a mistake. This was a statement. And it belonged to Lisa, my new neighbor from the shiny HOA development, Willow Creek Estates, that had sprouted up along my northern fence line. Lisa wasn't just any neighbor. She strutted like the world owed her a red carpet. Always in designer yoga gear, Bluetooth earpiece glued to her head, clutching some HOA rulebook like it was the Constitution. She'd introduced herself a month ago by demanding I trim the wild roses on my side of the property line, roses that were, by the way, entirely on my land. I'd smiled, told her to keep her Pinterest dreams to herself, and figured that was that. I was wrong. This was the 3rd time that week she'd parked her car on my private gravel road, a path clearly marked with a private property sign bolted to a post. The first time, I left a polite note, asking her to move. She ignored it. The second time, I called her, got voicemail, and left a calm message. Now, here we were again, and my patience was thinner than a worn-out plow blade. I marched over to her house, a modern monstrosity of glass and stucco, and rang the bell. Lisa answered, one eyebrow arched like I was interrupting her royal audience. Can you move your car? I asked, keeping my voice steady. It's blocking my harvest route. She smirked, leaning against the doorframe. It's just a tractor, not a bulldozer. Relax. Then she shut the door in my face. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. I wasn't just some hobby farmer. She was messing with my livelihood. But I didn't yell or pound on her door. I walked back to my barn, climbed into my Massey Ferguson, and let the engine rumble to life. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her how we settle scores out here. I hooked a chain to her Mercedes front tow mount, eased the tractor into gear, and dragged her precious SUV off the gravel and into my alfalfa field. The car slid through the rows, kicking up dust and grass like a reluctant bride trailing a veil. Willie Nelson blared from my radio, and by the time I parked her car 100 feet in, half the neighborhood was watching from their porches, phones out, filming the spectacle. My buddy Nate, sipping sweet tea from his shed, hollered, "She's gonna lose it." He wasn't wrong. I unhitched the car, left it nestled between the crops, and went back to my chores like it was just another Tuesday. When Lisa came home that evening, her scream could have shattered glass. She stormed into my yard, banging on my door, demanding I return her car. I handed her a tow company's business card and said, "Field recovery's not my job." She threatened to call the cops. I offered her my phone. The sheriff, a guy named Carl who'd known me for years, showed up an hour later. He took one look at the situation, chuckled, and told Lisa the road and field were my property. She stood there, face red as a beet, looking like someone had stolen her crown. But that wasn't the real kicker. Lisa didn't know I wasn't just a farmer. I was also the county's rural land assessor, with the power to make her life a bureaucratic nightmare. And she was about to find out. The next morning, I found my private property sign gone. Not knocked over, not spray painted, dripped out, post and all, with tire tracks in the dirt nearby. My blood boiled, but I didn't rush to her door. Instead, I pulled a manila folder from my desk, packed with land surveys, easements, and my assessor's certification. See, I don't just grow crops. I audit properties for the county, checking for zoning violations, unpermitted builds, anything that breaks code. I'd never used that power personally until now. While I was flipping through documents, Nate roared up on his ATV, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "She's got a landscaping crew out back," he said, pointing toward Lisa's lot, measuring like they're building a palace. I smirked. Her property bordered a protected drainage easement, and any construction there without a permit was a one-way ticket to a county shutdown. I gave Lisa one last chance. I walked to her door, badge clipped to my flannel, folder in hand. When she saw me, her eyes widened, then narrowed. "What's this?" she snapped. "I'm Jake, County land assessor, I said coolly. Also your neighbor. We need to talk about your car, your missing sign, and that landscaping project. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I showed her the road use code proving my path was private, then mentioned her backyard stakes. That's a protected easement. One wrong move, and you're facing an environmental review. She called my bluff, said she'd get her HOA lawyer, and slammed the door. Fine. Game on. By noon, Lisa had pinned flyers to my barn titled Community Safety Notice, accusing my farm of unauthorized agricultural activity and chemical runoff risks. It was so absurd I laughed, but when my ranch hand, Miguel, said she'd screamed at him for feeding the chickens, claiming he was trespassing, I'd had enough. I called Carl, filed a harassment complaint, and watched him tape a trespassing warning to Lisa's door. That night, a county compliance truck pulled into her driveway. An officer measured her backyard, scribbled notes, and left a red stop work order on her sliding glass door. Lisa's face was pure panic as she argued, pointing at my farm like I was the villain. The officer didn't even glance my way. The next day, Lisa held an emergency HOA meeting, pitching a plan to label my farm a nuisance zone to force me out. She lied, claiming her landscaping was approved and my road was public. But her own treasurer, Nate's cousin Ellen, dug up records proving otherwise. I walked into the HOA's clubhouse, dropped a 2003 access agreement proving my road's privacy, and said, "Mess with my land again, and I'm coming for you as a county agent, not a neighbor." The room went silent. Later, a young couple from Willow Creek brought me brownies, apologizing for Lisa's lies about me planning a compost heap. The tide was turning. At dawn, county inspectors swarmed Lisa's yard, confirming her violations. A news van followed, filming the red notice and interviewing neighbors who'd refused her petitions. The story, HOA president breaks environmental codes, feuds with local farmer, spread like wildfire. Lisa doubled down, setting up a street stand with balloons, handing out flyers accusing me of industrial expansion. I called my cousin Laura at the State Agricultural Board, who sent an officer to document Lisa's false claims. He left her with a warning letter, and she tore her own flyer in half, slamming her door. Then, the wildest twist, Lisa claimed I'd stolen her car. Carl, rolling his eyes, watched my trail camera footage showing the Mercedes moved legally. Next, a law firm sent a cease and desist, calling my actions harassment. I told their rookie lawyer, Ethan, I'd countersue for defamation. He backpedaled fast. That evening, Lisa's husband, Greg, showed up at my gate, looking defeated. "I didn't know," he said, explaining he'd been away and found their home in chaos. He promised to rein her in, maybe get her help. I nodded, skeptical but hopeful. The county reviewed my land, found it spotless, and praised my records. Lisa stepped down from the HOA, her signs vanished, and neighbors started waving again. One even asked me to mediate a property line talk not as a foe, but a neighbor. It wasn't peace, but it was balance. I told Lisa at the fence, "Respect my land, and we're fine." She nodded, defeated. But when I found my fence cut days later and saw a shadowy figure on my camera, I knew she wasn't done. The tractor's still by the barn, and I'm ready.